we've opened the exhibit celebrating the 50th anniversary of the National Canal Museum. It's called Where Creativity Flows, 2 Centuries of Art Celebrating Our Canals. And it's a bit of a departure for us, but I'm sure everyone who comes to see it is going to really enjoy this collection of various artists' visions of the canal and what inspired them to paint about it. We're going to start here on this wall with some eyewitness painters and artists who recorded what our canals and the river and the Lehigh Valley in general looked like before there was photography. Now, we're really, really fortunate to have been able to borrow this enormous canvas, which is on loan from the Siegel Museum, and it was painted by Grunewald, the Moravian landscape artist, in 1857. Shows a beautiful panorama of the Delaware River, Lehigh and the Morris Canals, the Lehigh Valley train trestle, and various sites that are still, in some cases, we can see actually here in the Lehigh Valley. And alongside those, there's another wonderful selection of eyewitness views painted by a female artist, Mary McCartney, who was a resident of the College Hill area of Easton. And these are really important because they actually show us what the Lehigh Valley and the canal system looked like in the earliest days of the waterways running. Now we're moving along to a panel that tells us about the Pennsylvania Impressionists, and a very important school of painting that gathered a lot of very talented artists around the New Hope area. And the Delaware River and Canal was their very common topic. We have on loan a lovely painting from Bucks County artist Harry Horn, and alongside that, Fred B's work, a lock tender's house on the Lehigh Canal in Bethlehem. Fred's probably familiar to an awful lot of our Lehigh Valley visitors, mostly for his historic Bethlehem paintings. But we're very pleased to have this one. This is actually part of the National Canal Museum's collection. Alongside those is a really remarkable and much surprise to me, as a matter of fact, collection of abstract paintings of the Delaware Canal, all done by an artist from Point Pleasant named Barbara Postel. And we're really very pleased to have this very different take on what the canals look like and how various artists see them, to have this particular vision of the canal, which Ms. Postel lived along for many, many years. Beyond there are 3 paintings by the Allentown-based artist Joseph Scrappitz. These were inspired and in some cases painted when he lived along the canal in Freemansburg. And he found the scenery and the waterways and the serenity of the canal to be an enormous inspiration for his work. And he's continued to paint the canal even after he no longer actually lives along the banks. Mr. Schisler is a pretty remarkable artist because he was actually a foundryman at the Ingersoll Rand plant. And he was pretty much of a self-taught painter. One of his earliest works is the painting on the top. His grandparents ran the store in Phillipsburg that was right along the Morris Canal. And the painting below is of a Morris boat crossing the Delaware River from the eastern side to the entrance to the Morris Canal on the Phillipsburg side. The very large painting here is of 2 canal boats in Freemansburg. It's a bit unusual because it's a sunset picture, but it's very, very accurate. And it's just a wonderful rendition of the site where actually visitors and hikers and bikers on the D&L Trail can see one of the 2 remaining lock tenders' houses, which shows there in the background. Here we have a poster from one of the 2 movies that we have discovered were filmed with a canal subject. The Technicolor one is a musical and was entirely shot in California, but the original black and white, Farmer Takes a Wife, was actually filmed here on the Delaware and Lehigh Canals. which they did because in the 1930s, when the film was made, they were the only canals still in existence that looked the same as they had in the 19th century. Here at our display cases, we have a rather unusual collection of canal-related or canal-inspired objects. Right here on these two shelves, these ceramic figures are in fact whiskey decanters, one of which in fact still holds some whiskey. Canal-themed objects were apparently a thing at various times in the 1960s and 70s. A little bit more on the artistic side are two wood carvings that were made by Edwin Leroy, who was the preeminent historian of the Delaware and Hudson Canal. And down here on the bottom is pretty remarkable. It's a craft plate painted by the mother of our late historian. She was a descendant of Morris Canal people, and this painted plate she created when our historian was actually a child, probably long before he ever got interested in the canal. So we're very excited to have found that in our collection. Our library contains a small collection of fiction books, obviously mostly related to the canals and to the coal mining in the region. The adult novels tend to be more than a bit older. Most of them were published in the 20s and 30s. But the children's literature is much more recent. Children's stories work very well because children were a very important part of their families' lives on the canal, in that for the most part, they took care of the mules. So stories that are built around children are not only very interesting for everybody to read, but for children it's also a very easy way to learn a bit about the past, because they can hopefully identify with what kids their own age were doing back in the canal era. And we have some lovely original art from the books that are on display here.